Hello. So in this video, I'm going to give you a lesson plan for teaching summary. Now summary obviously is a very important skill that can be used in a lot of different contexts. So the way that I teach it tries to get students thinking about some of the different approaches they can take and why they might choose those various approaches. So I, this semester, have taught summary using cancel culture as the subject matter. Now this is really useful because there's a lot being published about cancel culture at the moment, and so there's a lot of stuff to draw on, and students are likely to have some degree of familiarity with it. But you can obviously choose a different topic. Like there's nothing inherently necessary for that. But what I do is I choose two articles. So in this case, I've chosen The Letter on Justice and Open Debate, which was published in Harper's. And I've chosen Billy Bragg's essay about cancel culture. Let me see if I can remember the title of it. Cancel culture, something like cancel culture doesn't stifle free speech, but it does hold the old order accountable, something like that. Anyway, you can choose whatever you want. So what I do is I first have us talk about what summary actually is. I get students to give me their sort of basic definitions of it. And then we talk about the importance of summarizing honestly. Because I think that's something that I really emphasize, is that when we summarize, we want to make sure that we are clearly and accurately reflecting the position of the argument that we're summarizing. And I explain that this is for two major reasons. One is that it builds our credibility as writers if we accurately and honestly present the other side's position, because that shows that we're attempting to be fair in the approach that we're taking to this argument. It also shows that we're familiar with what the other side thinks and believes. So this builds our ethos as writers. It builds our credibility as writers. The other component of it is really more of a logos component. It's about argumentation, specifically avoiding the straw man fallacy. And so I introduced the idea of the straw man fallacy and this idea that you set up a weakened version of your opponent's position, and then you say, oh, look how dumb this is. I can knock it over easily. That's the straw man metaphor, right? This is a straw man. You can knock it over. Yeah. So I explained that idea to students and this idea of a logical fallacy as being unsound reasoning that can't reliably prove a conclusion. So this is great. Then I take them through what for me are the four major steps of writing a solid summary. Now, I'm envisioning this initial approach to summary as paragraph-length summaries, really 4 sentences. So the first sentence is going to give the main idea of this text. What's the core argument? And I tell my students, if there's a thesis that you can identify in the essay, article, video, whatever it is that you're responding to or that you're summarizing, if there's a thesis that's really beneficial, you can reword that thesis to express their main idea. Second step is to identify main points that this source makes or that this argument makes. What are the key claims, key pieces of evidence, key pieces of information, whatever it is? What do they use to build their argument? Number 3, you identify the strengths of this article. I'm just going to say article, I think. But it can be, again, a video, it can be a speech, anything. So what are the key strengths? And then stage 4 is what are the key weaknesses? And these two are interconnected. Number 3 and 4 are interconnected because they're both about establishing how you understand the other side's argument. I teach this in the context of productive counterargument, so I'm continually talking about it in class as the other side's argument. But when you're summarizing, obviously you don't necessarily have to disagree. You can agree and be using this source to support your own argument. But stages 3 and 4 of this type of summary involves showing that you understand the argument in a complex and nuanced way. So you're identifying strengths and weaknesses, and this is showing balance in your approach. And again, this is about building your credibility as an author. So then, taking the first of the 2 sources that I'm having students summarize, I ask them to write a full summary of it. 4+ sentences doing each of these 4 steps. I give them some time to work on it. And then after they're done, I have them switch drafts with a partner, switch summaries with a partner. And we do a mini peer review on it where they answer 2 questions. One being, what has this summary done well? And 2 being, what could this summary improve on and how? So very, very basic peer review type stuff. And then I will ask them, who thinks their partner has written a good summary? And I will have them read their partner's summaries aloud if they think that their partner has done a good job. And this way we get to hear some different summaries and we get to see what people have done, what approach people have taken to summarizing this article. Then I talk about the reasons why we might want a full summary like this. If we're devoting a lot of time and attention to a source, if we're doing something like a productive counterargument, which is what my students are doing when we have this lesson, you want a full summary of that source because you're responding to it in an extended way. If a source is important for the argument that you're making, you may want to develop it. If the component of it that you are responding to is the full argument, obviously you want a full developed summary. On the other hand, sometimes you don't want this. Sometimes you are not responding to a whole argument. You're responding maybe just to one particular point or one particular idea. I use the example of commodity fetishism in Karl Marx's Capital. I don't think it's a great example, but it's the one that I thought of to use in class. You don't need to summarize the 8,000 pages of Capital if all you want to talk about is this one particular idea. And so that's another option that you have. But the other option that we practice in class is an even more concise summary. Because sometimes you don't want to spend a lot of time on a particular source. You don't want to respond to it in depth. And so I have my students write a 1-sentence summary of the second source that we're working with for that day. And I tell them your 1-sentence summary is generally going to focus on the main idea, but it may also introduce some of the main points from the argument. So stages 1 and 2 of the more developed summary get sort of condensed into 1 sentence in this version. And then with that one, I give them a little bit of time to look back over the source itself and to write their summary. And then I just have a few students read their 1-sentence summaries aloud so we can, again, sort of see what people have done.